much, but yeah. Right. So welcome to the first week of section discussions. And I have some slides, which I will just put up. Again, they're very, can everyone see the slides? Are they visible? Or are you only seeing one small part of it?
Looks good to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, excellent. So, yeah, now you've all heard me introduce myself a couple of times already, so I'll just give you the 10-second version. I will be your virtual section leader, and I hope I'll be able to help you guys out. And so this is an outline of what we'll be doing today. We'll have a little mixer section. Now, because we don't actually have like 11 people here, I'm not sure. Okay, well, we have more people. Yeah, so at the moment, I'm not sure. Maybe you guys want to tell me, would you prefer to have like breakout rooms where I break you guys out, you talk for a minute, and then I shuffle you guys? Or would you just like to introduce yourself here in the main thread?
Either way, I'm okay.
Okay, so I think maybe we should just introduce ourselves here, and because I know that some people have privacy concerns, and it would really be best to just share whatever you want to here, and we will get to know each other over the next 5 weeks. There's no rush really, right? So would anyone like to start, or should I start calling people? Or
I could start.
Wonderful, please do.
So my name is Sean Moore, and I live in Oakland, California. I currently work for a medical device company as a process engineer, and I really want to, learn Python to kind of help advance my career and also learn a new skill, which I think is really awesome. So, yeah, that's me.
So that's actually a very good point. I mean, it would be great if you like tell us why you're interested in the course, and anything really. I mean, whatever you'd like to tell us, like your favorite color, what sort of, like, if you want, you can get tea or coffee, by the way. So yeah, would anyone like to go next?
So I can introduce myself. Like I said before, I have a very long name, so I will just say that my name is Yaya Charlie, and I'm originally from Cameroon, but I've been living for several years now in Germany, West Germany, Bonn, near Cologne. And I'm a student in the field of agriculture and food industry at the University of Bonn. So I wanted to learn this new language of programming because I'm also a fan of technology. Currently learning some Arduino, and so I wanted to learn more about programming. This is the reason here. And I'm looking forward to doing that with you guys. Thank you.
Fantastic.
So
Yes.
hi, my name is Narmin. It's nice meeting you all. I live in Azerbaijan, Baku. Perhaps you've never heard of it, but that's okay. And I taught myself Python with 2 courses from Microsoft on edX.org. And I felt like I still need to understand some concepts in depth. That's why when some of my friends told me about this course, I immediately decided to sign up for it. And I see that the methodology is really different. This course more focuses on understanding the concepts very deeply, whereas the courses I took before, they are more like do this like that. They are more like teaching us the techniques, how to do what to do in order to get some result. But this one, I like this more because as I can tell, here I understand the concepts deeply. That's what I like about this course.
Fantastic. Oh yes, one quick note, we'll get to that later as well. But when you're not speaking, to prevent feedback, it would be great if you could be muted, right? I mean, I could do that manually too, but that just feels more.
All right, and my name is Maria. I have a bachelor's degree in film, and I work for an airline. But I want to pursue a degree in mechanical engineering this fall. And my brother's a software engineer, and he told me about this course. I've taken one Python course before, but I don't use it enough to really like have a really good understanding of it. So I was hoping that taking this course would help me. But yeah, I do have a goal of just learning programming in general. So that's why I'm here. And I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. I don't know if I said that. But yeah, it's good meeting all you guys.
Hi, I'm Vrinda. I'm from New York, and I'm a journalist. I've been quite attracted to data journalism, and data visualization. So I've been planning to learn Python for a long time, and the quarantine just gives the perfect reason to do that. There's a lot of time on hand, so this course came by and just thought of doing it. Lovely meeting all of you.
I'm Georgie. I'm from London. I work in pricing in an insurance company at the moment, and I want to kind of learn Python because number one, you can kind of see what you can do with it in terms of, especially in the environment I'm in. There's so much opportunity there, and I also live in a house full of coders, and I've tried to get them to teach me, and they're terrible. So I thought it would be better to come on somewhere like here and actually learn it. Like somebody said before, kind of from the bottom up, so you properly understand what's going on at the basics. So I'm excited.
Excellent. Oh yes, so for Asma, who has just joined, we're just doing a round of introductions. Don't worry, since this is being recorded, you can see everyone introduce themselves later. For now, I think Abel and Asma, you guys need to still introduce yourself.
Yeah, I can be. Hi everyone. I am from Spain, Madrid. I worked in finances and accounting, and I never programmed never before. So I was saying I saw this announcement for the university, and I think that was a very good opportunity to learn how to program, because you can start from the bottom, from the zero. So that's why I am here.
Excellent.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we heard you. That is excellent. Now, the newest person, you're muted, I think. It's okay. So, okay, I'm not sure if she's or he is having trouble or, okay, it's okay. So that's done with introductions. Now, some norms. Now, as many of you pointed out, this is not the sort of cookbook kind of Python course where, you're like, okay, I know how to do this, or, import this, do that, whatever. So this is more related to computational thinking as a whole. So I encourage everyone to follow the material, because in the sense that, so there's a very clear progression in terms of how you think about problems, right? Instead of just, maybe running something to solve a problem, right? So like, we'll all like follow these course norms. We'll have empathy for each other. There is nothing known as a bad question, believe me. I mean, the only time someone tells you it's a bad question is if they don't know the answer. Okay, then they'll be like, oh my god, this is such a bad question, everyone knows this. Rubbish. Okay, all questions are good questions. Then you should be kind. It's a stressful time for everyone, and it's not a problem, right? And you should learn for yourself. Okay, now the reason why I put learn for yourself is because since you're already aware there is no certificate as such, there's no, I mean, there is an honor code, but there'll be nothing, like there's no issue if you copy and paste code. Like you're not going to be booted off. But I would suggest you shouldn't do this because, you know, as it is, you're not getting a certificate. You might as well understand it for yourself, right? So that's that. And about the meeting, so 40 minutes are a guideline and or enforced by Zoom, depending on whether they decide to enforce the 40-minute limit. And I would just like to, so again, now for this, we would probably like to use the HackMD chat. Does everyone have that open? I think only Sean has it open right now. I'll send it again on the Zoom chat, and I would like if possible, of course, it would be nice if everyone use this. So in particular, I would like to discuss whether or not, do any of you have any trouble, like time constraints, if this goes over 40 minutes, say an hour, because that's the average which I was seeing in the other sections. No? Okay, so I'm just gonna make a note of that. And it's wonderful, you know, I'm super glad. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's move on to the next thing, which is basic Zoom etiquette. And everyone seems to know this already. This is excellent. So be muted unless you're speaking. And I can manually mute everyone as well, just saying. Try to keep the video on because it helps me understand, or rather get an understanding of how the material is for you guys, right? And use the course notes liberally. Like, I cannot stress this enough. Anything you're thinking, put it in the course notes, right? Now, okay, so let's do a quick review. Since, okay, so this is a bit of a discussion point. Functions. Do you like them? Do you not like them? Why do you think they're good? Why do you think they're bad, right? So I'd like everyone to give like maybe 1 point, good, bad. Or, yeah, or anyone can go.
I think they're good. Helpful.
Right. Yes, go ahead, please.
Well, because I honestly, I kind of just looked at the course material, so I'll be more prepared next week. But from what I remember from my other class, like I like functions. But yeah.
I like functions because if I'm thinking of the right things, I think I am. It's a way in which you can teach what you want it to do.
Okay, so
what do you mean by functions here? You mean the commands that we put in the Python the program?
Excellent point. So specifically here, I'm talking about things which you write in terms of, say, for example, like when you make a new function, which is like def function. Yes, you know that syntax, right? So those things. In fact,
so in that, I think with Python, I'm finding the indentations very confusing. Like, yeah, but that's
not fun. Like it is. Okay, yeah, that's true. But in this particular case, I was thinking about more in general, like, so, okay, people have a lot of good things to say about functions. Why? Because, you know, as you guys mentioned, they allow reuse, right? Let's think about a couple of places where, so yes, this is an example of a function, yes, in Python. And so this is good because now instead of going and writing print hello everywhere I want to do that, I can just, you know, run my function, something instead, yes. But some bad aspects. Okay, so it's kind of difficult to talk about bad aspects of functions right now, but if you think about it, then you've done variables, yes? You've covered variables by now. Good. So now the thing is, what knowledge this function has about the rest of your code is something which is, it sometimes gets complicated. In larger programs, this becomes an issue. So that's where you might not want to use a function sometimes. But okay, we'll see more of that later. Then conditionals, which are extremely important, and we'll be using them a lot. If you started on the assignments, you'll know why. So does anyone want to chime in on why conditionals, what, when, why, where, something? And again, like if you have any questions or if you have something which you didn't understand, then this is the place to ask them because, you know, as we've discussed, this is the interactive portion.
It just helps you to write once and then it keeps doing it. So that's helpful. And I don't know, it makes a task much easier, makes it less repetitive. If you mean if, else, and while functions and the loop ones, I believe that's what you mean by conditionals.
So technically conditionals are specifically if else or case, right? Because they are conditional. And okay, quick question, pop quiz, if you will. What will this do? Like if I had this in a program.
If one is there, it will print there hello. You will see hello printed there.
Yes, that is correct. But in particular, if I execute this piece of code, will I see hello always? I mean, what is the condition I'm checking here?
One. The condition is one.
Excellent.
The input one.
Okay, so there's a little thing here. Although it's true, it is if condition, then statement, right? That is correct. However, when we talk about one in particular, then we are hard coding this. We are already telling the program that the condition is one. And it turns out that one will always mean true. So this will always print hello because we've already told it that it is one, right? So if you think about it, it's really saying if one, and then it's like, oh, but it's already one because there's no variable here, right? This is a constant.
True.
Right? Is this
Yeah, we
unclear?
haven't defined a variable yet.
Exactly. So because there's no variable, this will always execute, in which case this really becomes, you know, we didn't need the if at all, right? Okay, looping. So looping is, you know, looping is really, if you think about it, it's kind of an, it is a function which is defined at the level of the programming language itself, in some sense, because you know, it just loops for you, right? So, but what's important is there are two different syntaxes, right? There's a while loop and there's a for loop. Now, when would you use one over the other? And because Python is a very linguistic one, you might want to understand that in terms of when you would use it in English, right? When you would use it in a sentence. So does anyone have any examples of that?
I guess for loop is when you know exactly how many times you need to execute, and then you can use for instance, for I in range, and while is as long as it goes. It doesn't. We don't need a definite number of things for while.
Right. That is
Till the
correct.
time the condition of while is being satisfied.
Exactly.
The
Yes.
primary.
But if you think about it, that is correct. Those are all great examples and points. But I'm thinking more like at a higher level. Given a problem, when would you prefer the while loop versus using a for loop? Like, when is it a good practice to not know the condition in advance?
Would it be, I don't know really what you're asking, but for you want it to do it in every single case, whereas while you only want it to do it in certain cases. So you want sort of a, you want to tell it basically when you want to do it, as opposed to just doing it all the
Okay, so what I'm really trying to get at here is that, so there are languages where the while loop is not defined at all, where they only define a for loop. Okay, and you might recognize why, in the sense that the only difference between the while and the for loop is, in one case, you know the stopping criteria in advance, right? In a for loop, you say, okay, start doing this, do it until this, and this is what you're updating at every point, right? At every step. But in the while loop, you're just saying, okay, check this, and if it's false, right, then just continue with the main body of the loop, right? So does anyone know why you'd want the while loop then? Like, where would you not know the condition?
For instance, there is an example in the Karel reader. While the front is clear, Karel must move. So we don't know when the front is not clear, for instance, but when we put there while, Karel, the program will execute it until it's not true. So we don't have to know when the front is not clear. I think if we put while, then it will become automatic. I don't know if it was clear.
No, it is. That is a very good example, because the point of a while loop is that you need not know. So the way of doing that in a for loop is you say, hey, well, okay, let me look at the world. So you'd look at Karel world and you'd say, hey, okay, I see I have 10 squares. So then you'd say, okay, for less than 10, then you keep iterating. But when you do that, then you're hard coding, right? And that's against what you want a function to do. Like your idea with functions is that you want it to be general. So you don't really want to say that, okay, to execute an iteration, to do a loop, I have to know the size of my word. That is not good. So that's where you'd say, okay, I don't really need to know that. I just need to know my immediate surroundings to make the next step, right? So that's how you get to while is front clear. And so that's really one of the most interesting examples about this. And it brings up an important point when you're making your own programs, that if you expect like a range of inputs, but you're not explicitly defining them, right? So you know what you want it to be, but you don't care what it isn't. In that case, a while loop is good. Whereas with a for loop, then you need to know everything about the types of inputs or the end conditions in advance, right? Okay, and with that, we are ready to start with Hospital Karel. Now, yes, I thought I might embed the handout, but do you guys have the handout handy right now with you? If not, I'll just share it on my screen. In fact, I will just hand it out. To a new share, and there we go. Right, so can everyone see the handout?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay. So, you guys have all probably read this, but we'll still go over this very quickly, right? And then we'll start solving it. Okay, so one thing which you might wonder is that this is a very contrived sort of problem, right? Because you have a fixed word size, you have like, I mean, this is not exactly a hospital, right? These are not exactly supplies, but we'll maybe at the end, if we have time, we'll discuss a little bit about how you can generalize this to more things, right? Now, okay, so I'm going to assume that like some people may not have read this, right? So we'll just cover the salient points. What is that for? Okay, so Karel starts facing east. We can see this here, right? Starting like this. And okay, so the infinite number of beepers, I don't know if you guys have played around with Karel yet, but you'll notice that when you actually do play around with it, you can actually limit the number of beepers, but we won't be doing that here. And so now without hitting walls or overlapping, now what that means is that, can I annotate? Yes. So what that means is if I wanted to say, hey, how many hospitals do I have? And then you might say, oh, well, this is one hospital, this is one hospital, and well, no, it's not. So, no overlap. And equally, this is not a hospital if you just assume, yeah, it's not, okay? So, and yeah, much the same. Okay, now it's interesting that this is specified here as well, when we already know that when you say no overlap and no hitting walls, then you won't be able to do this one, right, at the last step. But yeah, okay. So these are just, so the main question can be like, the idea of the question is basically in the first 2 points. Second, the third and fourth are clarifying, so it's good, but not really all that useful in this case. And okay, I am new to Zoom, so I'm just, okay, wonderful, done. Okay, oh wow, I see that we've gotten free time. Okay, quick question. I would like to see this in the chat maybe, if everyone has that open. Otherwise, you can just tell me here. How many of you guys are using PyCharm? Or rather, okay, let me phrase it this way. How many of you guys are not using PyCharm? So everyone is using
Seems
PyCharm?
all
Okay. Right.
Ru, do you mind putting the assignment somewhere like in the hack MD or somewhere where we can also put it on our screens? The hospital assignment, I haven't seen it in our coursework. I don't know if anyone else has.
Oh, you don't have the hospital file handout? Wow. Okay.
No,
No, I don't have it. Has anyone else been able to
no.
access
Is
it?
it on?
I don't
Oh my God. Wow. Okay.
Is it online somewhere?
Right. That's terrible. I'm so sorry. I should have sent that out. Okay, but we have a quick fix for today. Then we will be using. Okay, I'm just gonna make that a note. Send out handouts. So since you guys don't have this, it wouldn't make much sense to cover this in PyCharm yet, because it'll probably be difficult to carry on. So instead, what we'll be doing for today, we'll be using the web editor. There is another reason why I personally might be teaching a few of these sessions using the web editor. And the reason behind that is when you use the web editor, then there are certain, so the web editor restricts you to, so for example, while this is perfectly valid Python, right, this is not going to work in the web editor, which for the purpose of our current class is a good thing, right? Anyway, I will be sending the section handout for sure, and I will check with the rest of the TAs and Chris as to why this has happened, but don't worry about it. So here we have the entire task. This is, the screen is visible to everyone. Should I increase the size or?
Looks good to me.
This is good.
Excellent. Right, so this is our world, and these are the commands we can use, right? So let's see, let's start with a super basic example. Right, so this is clear to everyone, yes? Now, when we start working on any programming problem, forget about this, then the first thing we need to do is break down our tasks. So you can tell me here, or again, maybe in the chat. By the way, the screen is still visible, yes? I'm just going to shift this. Okay, so let's do pseudocode. So is everyone clear on the concept of pseudocode and why we use it? Like, is anyone concerned or confused as to why we use pseudocode? No? Excellent. So the basic idea is, even with Karel, like I pointed out, some things like print statements are not valid for Karel, right? So, and the syntax is not really something we want to deal with. So first we'll just write the ideas out in what is known as pseudocode using basic literals, and then we'll get to the actual programming. And let me tell you, no matter how many years you've programmed, it is perfectly okay to look up syntax. Okay, nobody expects you to memorize it all. Don't worry about that. So that said, maybe I should share both of these screens. Wait, let me try to do that. Right. So are you guys seeing this screen, which also has the HackMD notes? Okay, cool. So there's no real reason to do it like this, like here, as opposed to putting it in the actual. I mean, we could just write them as comments or docs comments. Like we could just put it here, pseudo code. But it looks nicer to do it in the HackMD. And also this way we'll be able to make a nice little PDF of this, of the notes, which I'll send out. So what are our tasks? Right? So what is the first step, or what are the steps, or some of the things which we might have to do?
Find a beeper.
Okay. So yes, that is right. So we first need to find a beeper. Now, there's a quick question here. Why do we need to find a beeper? Because if you think about it, isn't this a valid hospital as well? Right?
Wouldn't we write a function to build a hospital?
Oh yes, that is very important, definitely. How do I stop annotating? Go away.
But whether we build the hospital before the beeper or after the beeper, we need to find the beeper as a reference.
Excellent point. Yes, that is exactly right. We do need to refer to them. Well, okay, well, we'll get to that. But wait, first let's do build a hospital, right? So we feel that this should be a function, yes? Find beepers, or at least be aware, right? And this too, well, it turns out, as I recall, we actually have a couple of these conditions which we can use to check a beeper. So this will be conditions, right? Now, the reason why I said, okay, we might not even need to be aware of them is because we could actually go right up until the end of this, right? We could walk past this entire line, picking up the beepers, and thereby having a clear screen. Because if you look at, but yeah, okay, like in this particular case, it says, okay, we should start at the corner. But it's important to note that this is not really necessary. As long as we, like, if you think about it, we could then just, make a hospital, say here, and then leave one and make it here, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But, and the reason why I'm considering this, which might seem a little contrived, is because the more conditions you consider in the beginning, the more general the function you write, right? And that's always a good thing. It is never too early to think about edge cases. So, okay, we have two things: build a hospital in a function and find beepers, or be aware of them, right? Anything else? And I'm sorry, but could people who have not answered yet give it a shot, maybe? So, or okay, anyone. So are there any other tasks which we might want to think about in terms of pseudocode? Okay.
You might want to think about moving from where you end up one hospital to the next hospital.
Right, that is
The next. Does that make sense?
Yes, of course, because, and let me just speak, is this what you mean? What you mean is after we build the hospital, we need to do something in order to go to the next one. Is that right? Yes, very important. Fantastic. Oh, wait, shit, the annotation is still there. Okay. So are we all comfortable calling that a sort of reset? That is, since we start facing east, then we want to reset to the initial condition so that we can move on to the next one, right? Okay, so a reset function with conditions. Perfect. Okay, now let's go to, like, now these are correct tasks, but now let's look at, what we have, for lack of a better term. And what I mean by this is when we look at the movement terms which we have, you will notice that Karel has move, turn left, put beeper, pick beeper, right? So in this scenario which we are outlining, do we need any other sort of move command?
We might want to move right, turn right. We might want to create that from
Excellent.
the left.
So let's actually put this right here. Movement, help us, right, turn right. Okay, so any idea how we would turn right?
Three times turn.
Sorry.
If we turn left 3 times, we'll turn right.
Exactly. Very good. So let's actually try to work on that. So the syntax is known to everyone, right? So F turn right. And well, okay, so now we've already covered looping, but still, what is it okay to do this? Turn left and turn left. Let's see what we got. Yeah, so it turns out this is okay, but how would we make this better, more concise?
Like you mentioned, you could do a loop.
Excellent. So, oh, by the way, we're all clear on this naming convention, yes? That we use underscores and we try to keep it short, but not too short, right? So because we have turn left, it's pretty obvious we want to do turn right, right? Okay, so let's, okay, yeah, another thing you will notice in the HackMD is that I will be keeping, like, it's just a good practice to maybe keep all our iterations, right? So first attempt. And we might also want to maybe keep some notes as to why we didn't want to do this. So what did we decide? It's verbose, right? It's too long. We can make it shorter, right? Okay. But importantly, we're not writing code directly into this markdown file because then we won't be able to run it. So yeah. Okay, another question. Here, what would we rather have? While loop or for loop?
For loop.
Okay, and why is that?
Is it because we know exactly what Karel has to do?
Excellent, yes. Does anyone want to add to that or change it, or just as an exercise, can anyone tell me how you would do this with a while loop?
As in, while no beeper is present, you keep moving. Like that's
No, like specifically turning right. So the question here is, can you turn right if you didn't have a for loop?
while left is blocked or right is blocked, something like that. I don't know.
No, but those are relative, right? So you'd end up in a loop. But actually, yeah, the best way to do this is to actually try it out. So let's go with that. Mm. Why can't I type into this? Oh, in fact, hey, wait, that is fun. This actually is stuck. It is not moving. But okay, but we'll look into that why later, because it can't actually go down below the word. So okay, so let's do two types of loops for this, right? While what did we decide on? Is I will look up the syntax. Did you go with left is blocked, or although in fact
Yeah, left.
these, if you look closer, we do have these not facing north, not facing south, west, east. So do you think we could use one of these?
Maybe I'm a little confused here.
Okay, let's try out this one. And if it works, then I'll try to explain why it works. And if it doesn't work, then well, there you go. Right, so what happened? If you think about it first, then you'd say, hey, well, a right turn is, like in this scenario, right is east and west is, to the left. So, why not just make a left turn until it's true?
No, but when you put this loop, it turned around. It did not turn right.
Yeah. So
Since we want the
yes.
So it turned.
So we want not facing. Sorry.
So yeah, so it turned left twice when you use this while loop instead of turning thrice left. So it turned around, right?
Mm-hmm. So which of these directions can we block so that it will make a right turn with a while loop? We've already ruled out this guy.
East.
East. Okay, let's give that a try. Really confused by the annotation part, but okay, it seems to be working. Right, so let's go with east and let's see what Karel does. Right, so this brings up a very important point, which is since Karel starts facing the east, this is not true. Right?
Oh yeah.
But we could make it true in a sort of artificial manner, and let's see what that does. Yeah. That is kind of interesting though. So we definitely were facing in that direction once. It's just that it didn't stop. And which leads me to think maybe east isn't the right one, perhaps, yet either. So, well, then we only have two more choices and we're just gonna try them out and see what happens. Okay, clearly that is not gonna work and neither will south for the same reasons. Right. Now, conceptually, can anyone figure out or decide on why we can't come up with a condition to turn right with one of these while not in this direction?
I think that we can use for E in range of 3, no?
Definitely, but that is because we know that there are there are four directions. So we start in one, so we turn like that. So what that does is it is like this is really at the heart of for versus while loops. You say, okay, because I know all my conditions. Yes, Brenda, you were saying something.
Sorry, shouldn't it work for South actually? If you could give it a go. It should, right? Because I don't know.
Let's give it a shot. Wow. Yeah, I think it did.
Yeah, it should. Because you have to, in the end, go to the South, and that's when the condition would stop working.
Fantastic. So now this is really important. Okay, I'm just gonna like highlight this because and yes, the for loop version is very important because honestly that is probably how you do it in real life. Okay, like if you're ever writing production code, then you wouldn't do this. And the reason is simple, this is more of a head scratcher, right? So let us do it as bonus with while and production go. Okay, like just to make sure everyone is clear on the for one, yes. For one, which is simply for I in range of 3, is turn left. Let's take a look. Oh my god, really? Oh. So production run. So that worked, yes. Now, given that, like, does this make it clearer as to when you'd use a while loop or a for loop? I mean, or like they're both the same concept. Like one of the important things to note about the entire conditional looping is that they are definitely the same thing. There's almost nothing you can't do with a for loop because after all, for loop is imperative. Since you know the ending, right? So it's kind of like maybe we could take a quick. Is this annotating? No, why not? Yes. So the, conceptually, if this is your start state and this is your end state, the for loop says, okay, until you reach here, do something, whatever, right? And the while loop says, okay, I don't know what this end state is, but I will know when I get there. So with the while loop, you're literally free to do whatever the hell you want. And then if you reach the endpoint, then the while loop stops. Does that make the intuition a little clearer?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah, it's more clear now.
Wonderful. So now I'm going to continue with the for version here, but you will see that I've put this inside your in the notes. Why won't this stop? Okay, yeah, right. And so we've done turn right. By the way, how we have extended it, but that's okay with everyone, right? If you need to go, please feel free, but for two reasons. One, this is recorded, and two, because you were told 40 minutes. So yeah. But okay. So now we know how to turn right. Okay, now possibly something which we should have maybe considered before this is, shouldn't we have to move all the way throughout this world? Like, because at the moment we're just, we're not really moving through the world so much as moving one step, right? So how would we move through the world?
Like you move till the beeper is present. Like you want to move till the end or only till the beeper is present?
So that raises a very important point. When you start programming, then you always want to cover the maximum amount first and then start to break it down. So you'd say, okay, this is my Karel world. So I want to know how to go from one end of the world to the other, and then I'll think about the beepers later, right? As opposed to, well, okay, to be fair, this has like, again, it goes back to the same layer type of thinking. Do you want to consider, like, okay, I will move towards the beeper and I don't really care about the walls? Or do you want to be like, I have a movement which goes from here till the end, right? And then if I come across a beeper, then I'll handle it. So what I mean is, Oh, yes, before that, I shouldn't have done that. Tell me, what would be better here, a for loop or a while loop? To clarify, we want to start here and end here. We just want to move right now, nothing else.
Wouldn't it be a for loop again?
So
maybe we can try for a while because we don't know the number of dots we want to move.
Yes. Okay, so let's actually do this in two ways, because it is, again, it might seem that I'm harping a lot on the whole for and while thing, but two reasons. One is, apart from functions that you'll cover in a lot of detail later, the conditionals and looping are the main takeaways of this, and there is almost no program you can't write which isn't a bunch of for and while and if. Okay, so let's look at it two ways. So if you wanted to make a for loop, what would you need? You'd need a number here, yes? And to get that number, what would you have to do? You'd have to say, oh, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, something. What happens if we just say, okay, I'm just going to go at it, right? Let's see. Another good thing about this online editor is that it actually does this little highlighting, showing you where it is, which is normally what a debugger does. Right. So this is nice in a sense, right? Because, so obviously nobody wants to count all the blocks, yes? So one thing which we did because of that is that we put in a large number here, right? But whenever you're doing something like this, you're making, okay, and you might argue that, hey, well, this errored out. So first question, can we fix this? Can we not get this error? And while you guys think about that, I'm just gonna take some notes about this.
Yeah, you can fix it with the while facing the front, the wall.
Yes, that is correct. That is actually exactly right. We can fix this by just checking with a while loop. But before we get to a while loop, right now I'm wondering, can we fix this in the for loop?
Yeah, counting the avenues, like the streets or the columns.
Okay, so let's try to okay, so when we talk about world traversal, I'm just trying to think of the best way to put this in the notes. So let's just do it simply. So we have two ways. One is the for, right? And the other is the while. And with the for, as we've figured out until now, we hit an error at the end, yes. And we need to manually count it, manually counting squares, right? But there's something else we can do. Remember, we have conditionals, yes? We have is front clear or is front blocked, right? And at the end of the day, the error which we're looking at with the for loop is, front is blocked. So in that case, can we use a conditional to not get this error?
I mean, do you want to use if after this? If front is blocked? Or if, yeah, something like that. Or if front is clear, move. If front is, yeah. If front is clear, move else. Or you can skip the else as well. I don't know. Else turn it around. Maybe something like that. Else turn around.
Yeah, that would work. But okay, now quick question. Where should we do the check? Before the move, after the move? So what I mean is that, do you want to put if here as in if?
Before the move, because you first want the condition.
So we're going with if front is blocked, yes?
No, if front is clear, move. I think so. Yeah.
If front is clear, move. And else nothing, so let's in fact just quantify that.
Or you can do else turn around or something. Oh, you can write pass. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, if we've not done that yet, then that's okay. But generally, like if you don't want anything to happen, you can just do pass. Pass means do nothing. Okay. Um, okay, but there's another important thing, but we'll look at that later. So what do we see? For one thing, we're in this interesting loop where it looks like Karel is doing a lot more than just reaching the end and stopping. For that matter,
Maybe if you do instead of, yeah, because it's going to count all the 200, right?
exactly, which actually brings us to an important point. If we had done the same logic in a while loop, we would have an infinite loop, whereas this is bound to end sometime, right? Basically at the end of the range. By the way, this is a terrible practice. I mean, I should just point this out. I'm doing the worst thing ever. You really don't, whenever you see something like this, then know that like where you don't know, so you're just putting a large value to iterate, that is a bad practice. You don't want to do it. But the reason why I wanted to cover this still is that, oh, wait, so one of the questions which may pop up because, so does anyone know why this is a bad practice? Like what is wrong? After all, we saw some interesting results and what the hell, it didn't even loop. Like technically it didn't even go into an infinite loop. It ran 200 times. Sounds good, right? What is wrong with this?
Because you can use a while in front of a 200 or
So one thing is
it's like
understanding.
so big, the number is so big that you can use while
Exactly.
in front of 4.
That is a very good point. So here, okay, so let's do a couple of things. So as you pointed out, such a large number means we should probably use a while, right? Probably use a while.
Or because we know where it ends, you're going to count it backwards and try and make it for instead of using a smarter way.
We recognize the end state. Okay, so this is, okay, let's go back to this previous idea which we had, which is of starting states and end states. Now, with the for loop, you define every step, right? And you define the number of such steps. You don't necessarily reach the end state. As we saw here, right? We just continued through the entire range. We never, because we don't actually have any way of recognizing when we're at the end. So as long as we say for, we're just going to go through all those steps. With a while loop, we recognize this state. When we reach here, then we know we're here. So interestingly, like, okay, to make this difference maybe a little bit clearer, I hope, with the for loop, what we just saw is that, hey, we reached the end state, we reached the end, but then we were allowed to continue moving around, ending up in a state which was not the final state. Is that clear or understandable?
Yes, it's like you put 200 and for 200 the Karel is going to do all the walking around the world. It's like he's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't understand what the end state is. Whereas with a while loop, okay, I'm just going to leave this entire code in the thing for fun. You guys can play around with this. So we'll just give it a comment here. It does fun stuff. Funny things. Not really funny if you know what's going on, but yeah, okay, cool. Now, let's take a quick look at the while and also see how life changes with the while. For one thing, the while thing requires us to know the end condition. That is the only way we get out of the loop. We need to know when to stop, right? So what we discussed, that the recognition of the end state is inherent to a while loop. So I'm not sure if this has been, I mean, I don't think this was covered in this manner, but is this analogy clear to everyone? The state analogy, the starting and ending conditions?
Yep.
Okay. So we encode the end state recognition. So we probably will just get through this very quickly. If what's the condition?
While front is clear, you want to move.
While front is clear. Oh, another thing which maybe some of you might have thought of already is that, hey, when we did the if, right, and when we did the else, we turned right, which is why we started moving around. We could have also just ended the program then and there. You could have said, okay, game over, right? In which case we'd have the same behavior, but that's once again because we know what the ending is. We know that, okay, when you hit this, this is the end. And typically, like a best practice would be if you already know the end state, then you just put it in a while loop. Because it's clearer. Like this syntax is much clearer than the previous one. It is shorter as well, as you may have noticed. Done. So you'll notice no error this time because we simply stopped moving. We stopped right here. And because in the hackmd you can still see we have reduced it from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines of code, which may or may not be very clear, to 2 lines of very clear code. This tells you exactly what is going on, right? Okay. So let me just put that here. Okay, so now we have traversed our world. Now the next step is, what would be the next step? Recall that we're still trying to finish these high-level codes. I mean, so we have implemented the turn right, yes, and we have also done world traversal. Okay, what's next?
Maybe now you want to turn around. And find a beeper, turn around and find a beeper to build the hospital.
But would we need to turn around, or should we just maybe then do all of that logic here before the move? Like, there's no real need to go till the end and then turn around because that's basically the same end start state, right? But it will have some interesting symmetry conditions. So what I mean is, let's do the annotation again. So say we started, where do we start? Right, so we start.
You can put something like, if while front is clear, if beeper is present, you move and then you find the beeper.
Okay, yes, that is a good idea. Let's start with that. Does anyone have any other ideas, or is everyone in agreement? Okay, I'm just going to.
I have a question. What do you want to do now?
Right. So good point. So now we have to remember that we have done 2 things. We have learned how to turn right, and we have learned how to go from one end of the world to the other. But that wasn't our main task. Our main task was building hospitals. So what is the next step? That is the first question. And some suggestions were that the next step is to go with this condition: find a beeper, or at least be aware of them. Right? Okay. So find a beeper. How do we find a beeper?
So if there are no beepers present, you move. And when you reach a beeper where there's present, it just stops.
Okay. But and this is a conceptual issue. This code runs, but what this code tells you is a beeper does not block the way, right? I mean, that is one, because honestly, when I first looked at Karel, I thought, oh, okay, this is a beeper. You stop at the beeper, right? Right. But apparently the supplies are small enough that Karel can just go over them, right? So we need a new condition. And the condition would then, so all of these clear conditions are not the right one to choose, right? So what could be our condition?
If no beepers present, you move.
No beepers present. Okay.
Because then it reaches when a beeper is present, it stops, and you know that you've found your first beeper. I don't know. That doesn't make sense.
Wouldn't we? I mean, we could just use beepers present, right? Instead of. So what I mean is perhaps if beeper present.
But then it won't move because there's no beeper present in the start and go.
Yep. Excellent catch. So we'll move, and if beeper is present. So the first question is, when is this going to be true? So let's just, for fun, let's just say, okay, when you see a beeper, you turn right. Makes no sense, but we just want to know what happens. Oh wow, really? No function beeper present.
It's beepers.
Okay, cool. So evidently, what is going on there? So beepers present is checking if it's on a beeper, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, and in fact, so you might wonder why we're going through this. Like, why does it matter? And it matters because without an understanding of what beepers present is checking, is it checking the next square? Is it checking, like squares all around it? Then you won't be able to work with this. So that's why first we're just taking a look, and we've figured out that, okay, beepers present is true if and only if Karel is on a beeper, which is excellent. That's exactly what we want, right? And what do we want to do next? Like turning left is all well and good, but that's not really what we want, right? And this now brings us to, so what do we do with this? So we have fulfilled this. We have fulfilled this part of the prophecy. We have found beepers and we are aware of them, right? What's next?
We want to place another beeper, and we turned left like 3 beepers to build a hospital. But since you have a move condition, it is going to go till the end of the wall. When that's not what you want it to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Can you show us again how the hospital should look like? Because
oh yes, sorry. Yeah, it should look like this.
Yeah, if you could put the end, yeah.
okay, thank you.
So
Do we need another function here
excellent.
to put beeper and then move, put beeper and move?
Right. So let's just that is a very good point. So now here we're basically now going to have to deal with this. So we found a beeper. Now we need to build a hospital. And should I okay, I'm not actually going to specifically put this part of the code because okay, well, I will. There's no issue with that. What are we doing? Beepers. So I'm sure everyone gets, I mean, is there a need for us to discuss how you might find a beeper and move around with the other conditionals, or we're okay with that? I mean, does anyone want to see how we might do that with a different kind of conditional? Like maybe in the for loop setup, or, but really it's just a conditional really. So much of the logic is already done for us. Is beepers, if beepers present is implemented for us. So is true if Karel is on a beeper. Okay, now let's get to one of the meatier parts, which is building hospitals. Right? So let's just say we have, let's start with the basics. Hospital, right? And for now, we're just going to leave this. Cool. So what do we have to do? Like, how do we go around with building a hospital? We look at the references, right?
When you find the beeper, you have to start to construct, to build.
Yes, and excellent. And how do we control how many, or how are we going to control that?
Should we use the for function there, because we know that we need to put just 2 beepers above? We already know that.
Actually, yes. So one suggestion is, and so we need to start the build, and can we use for? And of course, the answer is sure. Let's give it a shot. So for I in, so what would that be? For I in range 2, right?
Range 2, move and then put beeper.
Okay, let's give this a shot. Wonderful. So
And then do you want to turn around as well there, because else it will keep moving ahead to the wall? Okay, sorry, you've done that.
yeah, so that is actually an excellent point. But now there are two things to consider, and this brings us to a little bit of conceptual understanding here. So what is a hospital, and how can we build these? One way of looking at a hospital is they are 2 columns, right? If we look at the problem as a 2-column problem, and why would we ever do that? So the other way to look at it is what we're doing right now. We're saying, hey, we land on a beeper, and my hospital is now 2 beepers above, right? And then something which is 3 beepers down. Now, can anyone tell me why, or if at all, is this distinction important? Give it some thought.
For the next one, you'll have to write for I in range 3 instead of 2. Like, I mean, the for function will change.
Does everyone else want to chime in? Because this is a very important point from perspective of thinking about problems.
Because the distance of the first column to the second is more bigger than the third, or sorry, I didn't your question. Can you repeat your question?
Yes. Okay. So what I'm asking here is, since we know that, okay, so there are 2 things to consider. When we look at this, then the most natural way to think about a hospital is that, okay, we have 2 blocks of 3 beepers, right? That is what, that is what this thing says. But when we started to code, we realized that, hey, since we end up on a beeper, it's more natural to think about putting 2 beepers above that. In which case, we're looking at the problem in this manner, where we're saying that, hey, a hospital is 2 beepers up and 3 beepers down, right? So, and this is important because, well, first, is this clear? Is the question now clear?
Yes.
Okay. And this is important because how we code this function will change dependingly. And because it means that if we want to stick to this rigid approach that, hey, I only want a hospital, my hospital function should just create a block of 3 because, that's what it looks like, right? And really, this is one way of doing it, right? And we'll come back to this. We'll come back to this point, but for now, we'll move on to a different thing. That, okay, we're working with this. So what is the next step? As we saw, Karel is going too far. Karel is not stopping. We want Karel to stop. So, wow, someone is quite late. Hi, Ahmed. Would you like to introduce yourself, or have you gone through the? Yeah. Okay. Never mind. Right. So first of all, because we're doing it in this manner, I'd like to suggest, and I hope everyone is on board with this, that instead of saying build a hospital immediately, let's say build column one, build one column of a hospital, right? Mm, in which case we have build a column from, wow, do we, are we, okay. We seem to have two people who have just joined. Hi, Abraham. Would you like to introduce yourself? And
Hi, sorry, I got the time mixed up. I'm in Clarksville, Tennessee.
okay, wonderful. It's okay. We're recording this lecture, so you'll be able to watch the previous parts of it. And right now, we were just discussing very quickly. We've added a turn right, okay, and now we're just considering how to actually build the hospital. And so back where we were. Is a hospital 2 beepers up and 3 down, right? Now, when we look at it from this way, then what we're really doing is, instead of say build hospital like this, I would like to suggest build column 1 and build column 2. Is this clear? Like, why am I doing this?
Yeah, because in column 1, we have 1 beeper, so we only need to put 2 beepers. But in the second column, we always need to put 3 beepers. And it will repeat 3 times.
Okay, so there is, okay, at this point, we're branching into a lot of different kinds of options. So I'm just going to try to, one of the reasons why I keep notes is so that I know when I'm going into random directions and when am I not. So we've broken down at a very high level, we've broken down this build hospital into 2 things, building 2 columns, right? And as we might realize that, okay, this is not bad. In fact, I would, so after this, which way would we turn? So this is more of a, how should I put this? This is more of an idea which you should want to understand on your own. Do you think that we should put the turn statement into build column, or should we put it into build hospital? Where should it go? What the question which I'm asking is, right now, clearly we need to turn to the east, right? We need to make one turn to the right, right? Now, should that turn right show up in build column, or so just to recall, build column will just be turn, which way is that? Turn left, yes, and put beeper. Oh yeah, so how should we do build column? Let's do this piece by piece. How should we do build column?
Do you want to use the I function? The for function, sorry, for I.
So one suggestion which I've gotten is that, come on. So this is also useful because you should know that like editors, IDEs, and even when you actually code, they will often complain if you have these sort of undefined things. In these cases, you just need a skeleton definition to make it happen because we're not actually using that. So you might say, who cares? And that's true, who does care? So yeah, okay. So, okay, wait, something fun happened. What happened and how did this happen? Let's do that again. That is very interesting. What have we just seen?
Karel moved up without putting any beepers till the north wall.
And instead it put a second beeper where it was already there. So it needs to move first and then put a beeper.
Yes, that is right. And this is very interesting also because I did not know that Karel could that Karel had an understanding of how many beepers were in a single spot. But yeah, I mean, that is fun. Okay, right. So good point. Let's do this right. Okay. Um, there's a thing here. We so we like logically want to do this twice, right? So put beeper move. We lost Maria for a minute. Okay. Right. So there we have it. What is going wrong here, and how do we stop it from happening? And this now becomes a question of our flow. What are we doing? So what happened? Build column one. Yeah, first I'll take some suggestions. So
You you wanted to turn left after you put the second beeper.
yes. So right now, okay, interesting thing. Like everyone understands. Like no, I mean not every. I mean I just want to confirm. Is it clear why Karel is moving up? Because if you look at build column, all I told it to do is move once, put a beeper, move once, put a beeper. Why is Karel moving still?
Is it a loop?
Yes.
Yeah. Because the front is clear. So while the front is clear, it is going to move.
Yes, exactly. So that is clear to everyone. Yes, wonderful. Oh yes, sorry. I just wanted to. So Abraham, I have muted you right now, but that's just because unless you're speaking, you should stay muted. Otherwise, it's all cool. Please feel free to mention when, like, unmute yourself and talk whenever. Right? Okay. So this is very important because this has to do with the flow of the program. You go into main, right? Main. Then you are now in a loop. Right? I'm sorry, I'm terrible at this. And then you have like a different loop, really the function build column. But when you're done with this, then you're still here. Like this is clear, right? The whole why this is happening, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what is our next step? We like moving while front is clear, right? So now one thing which you may recall is that you might argue that, hey, if you had used the for loop, then you wouldn't have this problem. You could just say, Karel, make X steps, and X would be whatever, and it would stop whenever you want it to. And you'd be right, really. I mean, that is another way of doing this. Is that clear to everyone?
For loops only work when you know the number, right? Like an exact number, you have to go up or down.
Yeah. So that would be the obvious problem with it, that we need to have multiple segments of 4. But okay, that's a different problem. So now we realize that we have built the columns. So build column 1 is fine. Everyone is happy with build column 1? Good. Now, what do we want to do? As we have discussed, we want to turn, right? So we will turn right. Let's see. Okay.
You put to left. No, okay, right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Sorry.
no, that's okay. So this is good. Now, here's one of the conceptual problems which I was asking you guys. Should I do this here? Should I put this turn right in this position, or should I just put it as part of build column 1, or should I put it in build hospital? Where should this turn right go?
You can put it part of build column 1 so that it doesn't go into a loop.
So now again, this leads us to a question. Okay, so this has to do with functional purity. So, and what that means is your function should not do more than what they need to. And so like, if you think about it, build column 1 is meant to build this column, right? As such, there's no reason why build column 1, like, I mean, correct me or tell me if this is not clear. There's no reason why build column 1 necessarily has to face in one direction or another, right? We're just building a column. So, okay, well, let's do this in another way. We have here, we discussed we might want a reset function, right? Now, when and why do we need this reset function?
Because at the moment we're having an issue where it's facing in the wrong direction and it's carrying on with the loop.
Yes.
So if you want to reset, you can get into the same environment as you were in the beginning and carry on.
Exactly. So the reset function we wanted so that, no matter what you're doing, you end up back here. So you end up, say on the bottom row and facing east, right? Those are the two important things you want to come back to. And at that point, you might, like one would argue that turning right or left is part of building the hospital and not really building the column. Like the column is just, it is two beepers above the first beeper, right? So while it is correct to maybe incorporate, so another thing is, where do we want to have this if statement? We'll do refactoring later. So, okay, one of the things which you might not consider as very important when you're first programming is that as you build your program, you come up with a set of functions and features and conditionals. And at the end, I would suggest you should review your code and refactor. What refactoring is, you're just moving things around to make it conceptually more clear as to what you did. We'll look at that later. So for right now, we'll say, okay, let's just turn right. Is this clear to everyone why we're turning right not as part of build column 1? Yes?
Yeah, because it's not part of the build column. That's why.
Yeah. Okay, so we have turned right, but honestly, it looks like turning right isn't doing us very much. Isn't doing us any favors. So what we really want to do is turn again, right? And now we have, no, that's not good. Why is that happening?
Because you need to move one step, right?
Exactly. I actually have trouble with moves, which are, with moves, as you may have noticed, because, yeah. Okay, now this seems like fun. This seems like a good thing, right? Because now we're almost there. Like, what's left?
Building column 2.
Right. Also, because we just discussed refactoring, is there a shorter way we could do this? And the answer is, it is repeated twice. So what we would do is that we just write this. And this is an example of a refactor. Now, the reason, so you may remember that in the beginning, because we didn't know what this function was doing, we just manually copy pasted. That is perfectly okay. It's just at the end, to make yourself look professional, you should replace all of those kind of things with like for loops and while loops and, So we're satisfied that this does the same thing, but it looks cleaner, right? If you wanted to teach someone or you wanted to say, hey, you know how to solve this problem, you'd show them this because they won't want to read through all of that. But when you're programming, often you will probably want to just see what is being done explicitly until you get enough experience, right? Okay, so now we have build column 2, and we had a nice little pass statement here, which we now we'll start doing things now, right? So is everyone comfortable with the sort of flow which we're doing? We're starting, we have pseudocode down here, and then we are, I'm sorry. So we have pseudocode down here, and then we are also putting like these little scaffoldings where we're saying that, okay, build column is just something, right? And we put pass statements until we know what we're doing with them, right? Okay. I'm sorry, I know it's getting quite late. Okay. Now we're ready to build the second column. What do we know about the second column? Ideas, suggestions?
We want 3 iterations. So 3.
Yes.
Another loop difficult with 3.
So in fact, that's a very good point. You know, I mean, basically what's going on is it's basically this, right? Just going to say, only now we're doing it thrice, right? What went wrong?
You have to first put one beeper, then move. So you can just do that actually twice instead of thrice. And put beeper should be first.
Right. So is this clear to everyone, like what we've done? By the way, quick point. If you recall, in the previous iteration, we actually got an error. Like you'll see if you notice the statement which we got. See, Karel is stuck because it's basically in an infinite loop, right? So, whereas with you know, as we just discussed, just write it again. Okay, so. And now we are in a position to, so what have we done? We have built a second column. Oh, also because I don't know where that will be covered. Def no bugs. So this is just an example of like where you don't have a function defined, but you're going to define it later. So. Okay. Right. What's next? We are almost done, actually. I mean, I'm very, like, it's amazing, really. For one thing, we're now in a position to do a little bit of refactoring, right? Can anyone tell me what refactor I'm thinking of doing? And the suggestion is this one. What is the refactor I'm thinking of?
Put all of this in building hospital and just have building hospital on the top, like just one line.
And why would I want to do that?
To have a neater code, I don't know, cleaner code.
Actually, yeah, I mean, this is part of functional abstraction. So, and this is also, so true story, this is like a pro and a con. Like when you start to do this, then you realize that yes, it is much easier conceptually if I just say, hey, you know what, it just builds a hospital. And indentation. But what you're losing by doing this is that, you know, the person reading this code will not understand how you've considered the hospital. And you'll recall we considered it in two ways. We considered it as 2 blocks of 3, right? Or, you know, the whole go 1 up 2 and then block 2 is 3. So that is something that is a detail which is lost because you have put it in a function. I mean, it is effectively lost, but that's okay. Like, you know, that's why we have documentation and all of that. So what's next? What's next is
we wanted to again face east.
Exactly, and that is a reset. Now you'll notice that originally we thought we were going to have a reset function, but it turns out really it's a single move, right? So oops, sorry, turns out it's left. There you have it. We have evidently done this. And okay, now there are a couple of things about this. You'll notice that at the end, it was almost trivial to just fix it, to finish it. And the reason is because we thought out every single part of this. So the final step was trivial. Once we've broken it down effectively, then expanding your problem is easy. So, and this was very important. Like, it was very important to understand that we need a reset function, right? Conceptually, it is important to understand because it helps us understand the problem. It helps us realize what we're doing, that we're building a hospital. It is consisting of 3 blocks, 2 columns, whatever. And then, because we have the right kind of functions and everything, we have the solution. Simple, right? So
Sorry.
yeah, no, please go ahead.
I just had a question. So which functions consider the reset function?
So that is a very good question. In this particular case, because of the form of our because of the way we broke the problem down, we broke it down into building one column and then building a second column, and then we put them all together into the build hospital command, right? So the reset is part of build hospital. It is, and the reason why I did it this way is because honestly, in this particular case, after the way we've defined our functions, you only need to turn one step, right? So there's no need for an explicit complicated reset. But if we had done this in another way, and I'm sure you guys can play around with this later, if we had, for example, maybe, I don't know, for some reason ended up in a different position, then we might want to write a general reset function, right? So say if for some reason we end our program here. So suppose if you reach here, put one here, one here, one here, go up here. I don't know why you do that, but you could feasibly. In that case, you might want to have an explicit reset. And so you always need to consider the reset, okay? But often it'll be trivial enough to be part of your main function. Like, and the reset concept is actually more important than that, because it is that concept which became part of this, right? The concept that you need to know, and this, now to tie it into what you guys have been doing in your courses, it is the post condition, right? So now we're ready to like put this out. So precondition, you're on a beeper. You are on a beeper. And the post condition is your east, right? Bonus on the bottom line. Like, is that like clear? Because I'm sure you guys have done pre and post conditions in the lectures, right?
Yeah.
Now, you might wonder why I introduced the pre and post conditions this late. And the reason is pre and post conditions are a concept which work very well for conditionals. Okay, in fact, that's the whole basis of the for loop, right? You have a precondition, you have a post condition, and you check them iteratively. But often it is nice to break your problem down in a different way, right? So because you'll notice that if we had started with a precondition that you're on a beeper and then the post condition is your east, then it's not, how should I put this? Like, it doesn't really give you too many hints as to what you need to do next. So, which is why here we covered it in this manner, that we assume that we had a reset with conditions so that we replicate that position. And before this, we have to actually build the hospital. And yeah, okay. So now I will just briefly ask you guys if you understand other ways of solving this. And then we'll go to the last slide, which I have, which is, suggestions and future plans. Right, so briefly, can one of you guys tell me what we would have changed if we wanted to build it in this manner? That suppose, right, let me put it this way. How would we change our function?
So I started thinking with a different condition. Like instead of while front is clear, I started with while no beepers present move. So it'll find the first beeper, build one column, build second column, and keep moving. But I would have to write an extra line of code because once it hits the wall, it cannot move. So and that's when the Karel will crash. So I'll have to write an extra line of code that if front is blocked, then turn around or something like that pass. So yeah, so this one just reduces that extra line of code.
Okay. So now another thing which you notice is that there's actually another way of looking at this, and we'll just cover that super quickly. So if a beeper is present, and okay, so here's the concept which I'm trying to get at, that a hospital is basically just two columns of three beepers high next to each other, right? And so what I mean to say is it not possible to consider alternative three columns, right? I mean two columns, three beepers high. So how can we look at this? So when you reach a beeper, right, we still need to check if we're at a beeper. If you're at a beeper, pick it up. What does this mean? And why would I care?
To clean the whole thing and build as you want.
Yeah, well, it turns out since we can place multiple ones, this doesn't even matter so much. But if you look at our build column 2 function, right, and I like build column 2 over build column 1 because, you know, there's no reason, honestly. What is my typo? Oh yes, of course, sorry. Right, so what we're doing here is that if we pick up a beeper, then we only have one column function, and that is build 3 going up, right? Because the whole reason why we have column 1 is because it is essentially a special case where, you know, you want to put down 3, but because 1 is already present, you're like, okay, hey, I'm just gonna like move up, right? So another way to make column 2 always the right option is to simply pick up the beeper here. Is this clear to everyone? Maybe.
But then you have both of them have got 3 that you have to place, so it just reduces the line of codes.
Yeah, but more importantly, it shows a different kind of concept. I mean, of course, that is very important, like lines of code and all of that, but is everyone clear on what sort of conditions? Okay, so maybe I'll just, so in that case, we can have a more general approach. We can say, and now here, one of the reasons I want to do this is to show the reset more clearly. So for one thing, let's do while not facing east. This is essentially a reset. We're saying while not facing east, you want to turn left, right, whatever. We're going to use left because that is the primitive provided to us. So while you're not facing east, you turn left. This becomes a reset. If you are on a beeper, which we know from here, if beeper is present, right? Okay, I'm going through this quickly, but please stop me if you're confused about any of these points, right? If a beeper is present, pick up the beeper, right? These two together are a reset. And why am I saying that? Because, okay, in fact, we need one more, which is to say that we should be on the bottom row. Do we have anything to tell us which row we're on? No, okay. Well, we could write a function. Okay, so can anyone tell me very quickly, we won't actually write this in interest of time. Wow, it's been a long time. But how would we know if we're on the bottom row? Suggestions?
To check that a write is blocked. So that means you're on the bottom row.
That is blocked. Okay. I can see.
Or, yeah, you could do it So it's south if you can't go any more further south.
Yeah, if your south is blocked, sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay. So in fact, let's go with that form, because while you're not south, okay, while you're not facing south, you'll turn, right? That's part one. So while you're not south, you turn left, right? And then you move. And oh wait, there's another thing. Then you do while I'm not blocked, while is, what did we have? While front is clear, move. And is this clear to everyone what this is doing? To maybe take a look at this, let's see. Let's try to use this here. Yeah. So I'm just gonna try this command here, go to bottom. Let's just see if it does what we expect it to do. No, it doesn't. Why not? Ideas?
I still don't know what you're trying to do. And I understood the first part where you wanted to pick a beeper and then keep making three columns. But what are we trying to do here? Like, what sort of reset are you trying to get at?
So now I'm trying to say that, say you end up here, which we did at the end of build column 1. I want to go back to the bottom. And to go back to the bottom, I need to know how to reach the bottom, right? So,
Bottom as the first position that you started, or just like turn around and down?
Any one of these is going to be valid, because remember, we already know that, I mean, from visual inspection, that the beepers are only in the bottom row. So wherever we end up after all of our work, we need to regress to the bottom. We need to go back to the
So why don't you turn around and move to the wall?
Yeah, so in fact, that is what we were trying to do here, but for some reason, right.
So to bottom, you can do like turn left twice, and then while front is clear, move. So instead of writing while not facing south, you can do turn around.
But that would make an assumption on which way we were facing when we call this function. Like the idea is to have whichever way you're facing, you should just, you know, go south. And I'm actually kind of surprised this isn't doing what I thought it would. So does anyone know? Because this is kind of not.
Because initially it's facing north, and when it's not facing south, it's just taking one left turn, and that's where then it starts facing west.
Oh, right.
So you need to know where Karel is facing.
Interesting. So that is actually, so now here's why we'll use a hacky, like I did not expect this, but this is nice, because we know there are 4 directions, right? So now we're just going to hack our way into that. We say, hey, you know, I know there are only 4 directions, so I'm just going to turn left continuously. And if I'm happen to be facing south, you know, do we have an if south? Yeah.
If facing south, yeah, you can. Yeah.
So, oh shit. Whoa, that is weird. That is not expected. Right. Okay, I'm just gonna like ignore this for now and deal with that. I hope it comes back. I do want to teach you guys next week too, hopefully. Right, so if facing south, then come on.
Then you move while the front is clear.
Yep. Then we move while the front is clear.
So while front is clear, you're right. Yeah, while front is clear, move.
Is this like, does everyone understand what we're doing here? Like, oh wait, what did I do? Oh, yes.
You need to put a colon after the word. Yeah.
Okay, for one thing, this is really slow. Why is it so slow? Oh, yes, this, yes. And it did it. So can anyone tell me, I mean, do you see what happened here? We couldn't test the final, we couldn't recognize our end state. Okay, like one of the problems that we were having with the while loop is that, you know, north south is a lot of things. So in this case, we just said, hey, you know what? I don't care. In 4 turns, I know I'm back to the same one. So whenever we reach that, then we're just going to do this. Now there is, of course, a while alternative. By the way, is this function clear for everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. So the while alternative to this is simply, you know, actually, yeah, this is one of those cases where it's very difficult to give a while alternative. Like, do you guys see why that is? Like, do you guys have an idea of how you could use while here?
It's tough to get while here because the first condition would be mostly always be agreeable. So then, because
Exactly.
you'll have to make the assumption that where it is facing.
Yeah, which is exactly what we saw. We tried to use a while, and conceptually we said, hey, you know, while you're not facing south, then you turn left. But the problem is that only runs once, because you're only not facing left once. I mean, not facing south once, and then it's done, game over. But in this case, we know that there are only 4 possible rotations, right? And in fact, you know, we could even make this 3, because truthfully, the 4th rotation puts you back in the same direction, so it doesn't matter. But I'm leaving it as 4 because that's conceptually easier, you know, north, south, east, west, so 4 comes naturally. And so now here we're actually going to define a full reset function. We're going to say, okay, wherever you are, the reset is first go to bottom, right? We already have this. And then now here we know we're already facing south. So you know what, we're just going to turn left, right? And now here, let's see what this does. We're just going to run the reset instead. Right, where are we? Oh. Cool. Okay, so what is going on and why is this happening? Like, I know that seems to be a common question I ask you guys, but it's just good practice. Are we in the right position? Are we doing the right thing? Is this reset correct?
No, it's not facing east after the probe.
Exactly. So how do we do that?
You just need to turn left, right? After it reaches the wall.
So weirdly, that didn't seem to work for some reason. Yeah, but I think you're.
Oh. Okay.
No, I think that's a consequence of the rest of the things we're doing. Namely, we're calling build hospital continuously. So yeah, I think the reset is fine, right? So we're just gonna go with that. So do you guys understand the difference between this kind of formulation, like where we have an explicit reset, where we go back down, and now we just have one kind of, so, okay, here's the thing. If beeper is present, now just becomes pick beeper. Then make columns, okay? So just build column 3. So, or actually, in fact, I believe we can just do build column 2. We just need to make one turn. So we need to turn north. How do we turn north?
Turn left, you turn north if you're facing east.
And we know we're facing east. So does this work? No. Why isn't this working for us? Because we're only building column once, right?
So with this reset, what you're trying to get is that by the end of every column building, you come down and you face east.
Yeah.
Is this the reset that you're trying to achieve?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you'll notice that we're actually ending up in the opposite direction, which is not good. And we might want to see why that's happening. So evidently we need to turn to the right. And you'll see this is a completely different approach to the one which we did before, right? Because here the smallest program we're running is actually just making one column everywhere it finds a beeper. And this is like I hope like it's as exciting for you guys as it is for me, that like previously we were building a whole hospital at every point. That was our idea. We were like, okay, find a beeper, then build that whole two beepers up, three beepers down approach. And now here the minimal program which we're executing, our thought process is completely different. We're saying, hey, you know what, wherever I see a beeper, I'm going to pick it up, I'm going to just build three, and then I'm going to come down again, right? And the utility of this is, actually, if you look at it here now, how do we finish building a hospital? And it turns out it's really nice, I would say, because you just move once and then you do build column again. Reset, hopefully. Ooh. Okay, ideas. Why did this happen? Why didn't it do what we wanted it to do?
Because you can't build column 2, because that is a different command. Maybe you have to build column 1 again.
No, actually, I think here it's just that if you look at what happened.
You turn left, yeah.
Yeah, we just didn't turn.
Yeah.
Like, so we built this guy and then we came back here and we moved all right. But then we just started building here, like we didn't make the turn. So yeah, okay, let's just see how that works out for us. Turning, which way do we turn? I'm very bad with directions. Let's just try both. Whatever.
Yeah, you should try left.
Yeah.
Turn left.
By the way, I noticed that a lot of people are quiet. Is everyone following?
I'm sorry if I'm
yes.
speaking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is beautiful. We have a whole separate system using only one of the column functions and then more explicit reset. So what did you guys think? Like, is that nice? Is it like okay, so let's actually put this into the Hangout. I mean, sorry, the HackMD. By the way, for the people who joined late, we have this little HackMD thing where I've been keeping some notes. Not all of them, but possibly enough. So now, and this is purely a question of your own personal preference. Which method do you like better? Because as we saw, they're both perfectly viable, What did you guys like better?
Like the first better.
Sorry, I couldn't hear which one.
The first one.
The first
Did
one.
the first. Yeah.
Everyone else, and this is important because it is important to recognize what works best for you, and that's why I would like everyone to chime in on this one.
I like the second one, just because I feel like because it's so simple. If you wanted to make the hospitals bigger or whatever, then you could easily do that with that one instead of have two different ways.
So I mean, just to clear things up, there is no right answer to this. They are both equally valid, but I mean, it's just important to know what feels more comfortable to you guys. Just gonna, I hope I kept enough of the code that it works. No, damn it. Does anyone recall what our first build hospital looked like? Because I'm feeling a bit lazy. What did we do? We turn right, I believe. We build two columns up, then we move. Let's see. No? Okay, quickly, everyone else. Do you guys recall what we were doing? That's okay. Okay, so while I rehash over that, I'd like everyone to like maybe sound off on which one you like better and more, please. Oh, come on. Oh shit. Right. So this should actually tell you guys. So what I did wrong is that I forgot that turn left is actually part of build column one, which is why, you know, it just goes to show that like realistically, it's probably not always a good idea to have non-descriptive, like to do things in your function which you don't expect. So in this case, you know, build column one is fine. Then we need to make a turn, and that turn will be to the right, and then we move because build column two will simply make our hospital, right? And actually, no.
You move and you have to turn again.
Yeah. Oh, come on. I'm sorry.
Turn right.
So okay, yeah, let's see. Wonderful. Okay, so now we have both. Now Karel could build a hospital one way or another, and because in the interest of so 2b per 3, 2b 3c. I mean 2c. I'm just gonna call it call function, and this one I'm gonna call single call or call reset. Okay. So now, final thoughts and what did you guys like? What can I improve? Although I'll send out a survey for that probably. But yeah. Now, can anyone tell me? Well, I know we already covered this in quite a bit of detail. I'm just gonna copy paste this entire code at the bottom here. For code, you guys are free to play around with it. In fact, I'll make a little PDF of this as well, probably. Cool. Okay. So we've solved Hospital Karel. How do you guys feel?
I thought it was really good, really interesting. And thanks for spending the time going through it.
Sure, it was my pleasure. Let me just see if there was anything I meant to discuss, which I'm forgetting. Yeah, see code, bonus. Oh, yes. Okay, so we covered more problems. Now about office hours. So as you may have noticed that I didn't cover your assignment questions. And the reason for that is, well, you know, technically, like it is expected that like after this session, for example, you would have a better insight into your assignment problems. That said, I think after the first week, so after a week has passed, basically after your submission deadline, I'm allowed to help you guys out with the assignment problems as well. Although I believe there will also be recorded sessions and doubt solving and all of that, but I just wanted you guys to know that if you'd like, I am happy to set up maybe one additional session to cover interactively the assignment solutions. Like, you know, after you guys have all gone through them, if you have any questions or if you'd like to see, you know, some more live coding on those particular problems, then I can probably slot in one more session, but it might be over the weekend because I have other things to do, sorry. So, but yeah, I mean, we can do that in post. So I guess that's the end of it. You guys are all fantastic. I sincerely hope everyone understood what I was going through. And I hope this made the entire concept very clear. We solved the problem in some ways which I didn't even expect, honestly. And it was great. I had a great time.
Thank you. It was really helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
So you guys will have the notes and we'll deal with everything else later. Thanks so much. Have a great weekend. Yes. Bye.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Rohit,
Yes, tell me.
the recording, like how would I access it later to see the stuff I missed
Yeah, I'll just send the link on. I'll make a post on the ad. With
in the ad?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just do
Thank
that.
you so much.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Bye. Take care.
Thank you very much. Bye.